There have been shockwaves going throughout the political conversation over the fate of DEI, also known as diversity, equity, and inclusion, after a recent study from two economists, a rather good study from two economists, was published and then publicized throughout the media. Jeremiah Green and John R. M. Hand, that's how you say his name, John R. M. Hand, wrote a study called McKinsey's Diversity Matters, Delivers, Wins, Results Revisited. Now, McKinsey is this big consulting firm that is one of the primary reasons why diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, has such a prominent presence in institutions throughout America. In fact, it has been McKinsey's research that has been used from 2019 up until now to justify the presence of DEI in institutions. And one of the ways McKinsey has justified the presence of DEI to their clients is by saying that essentially businesses make more income, they make more capital, they do better when they have a racially diverse leadership as opposed to not having a racially diverse leadership. The abstract to the study done by these two gentlemen says the following. In a series of very influential studies, McKinsey reports finding statistically significant positive relations between the industry-adjusted earnings before interest and taxes, margins of global McKinsey chosen sets of large firms, and the racial ethnic diversity of their executives. Well, these two gentlemen basically have said, in so many words, that the data that McKinsey used to justify DEI throughout the world is based on statistical errors that cannot be replicated by anyone. And if you can't replicate your results, that suggests a few things. It suggests either your underlying methodology is flawed. It also suggests that your underlying methodology was skewed and manipulated in some way. And of course, in the conclusion of the abstract, these two gentlemen conclude the following. Combined with the erroneous reverse causality nature of McKinsey's tests, our inability to quasi-replicate their results suggests that despite the imprimatur given to McKinsey's studies, they should not be relied on to support the view that U.S. publicly traded firms can expect to deliver improved financial performance if they increase the racial or ethnic diversity of their executives. There's so much to discuss here. But let us first talk about the underlying claim McKinsey made and what that claim is based on. Oftentimes, a lot of people are swayed by solely just consequences or results. And I think at a certain level, if you're in the corporate world or you're in an institution where results are quite tangible to the success and health of that institution, it makes perfect sense to be worried about those things. But for those things to be the primary focus, the primary apple of your eye as an executive or as a business leader can lead you to some very morally trepidatious territory. This is one of the reasons why you have seen over the past few years companies quite literally sacrificing the desires of their shareholders, not worrying about their fiduciary responsibility to pursue political campaigns, political ideas embodied into the structure of their company. The Dylan Mulvaney nonsense with several companies, including Bud Light, was an example of this. Bud Light constituency does not go on TikTok and watch Dylan Mulvaney. And despite the fact that that's the case, they completely ignored that. They completely ignored the financial considerations. They completely ignored first principles. And they took what they believed could be the result of a virtue signaling campaign. This underlying tendency to focus on consequences over principles is a result of a lack of moral education that has been seen throughout the West, number one. And it's also a fundamental result of an unwillingness to see beyond the near future and to see into both the past and the future. If you're going to be someone that does things properly and in order, in an ethical manner, you must be able to weigh the actions of people in the past that you can learn from, and you must be able to predict how your actions will continue to impact you, not just in the short term, but also in the future. But when you have a society that is so driven by short-term gratification, that is so driven by this consequentialist philosophy that says the greatest result for you in the short term matters more than what is moral and what is true, you will oftentimes get people who put morals to the side and they will instead embrace things that may either violate their core principles as a company, or they may alienate their constituency, or both. Who knows? But that's a peripheral issue. Let's put that to the side, because that's been an issue that's been happening for a long time. What is a lot of people who are commenting about this are missing, because there's been several conservative influencers commenting about this study. It has been going on the Daily Mail and the Federalist. A lot of people who are commenting on this are actually missing a key part of the abstract here, of the conclusions of Mr. Jeremiah and John. I'll read it again. Combined with the erroneous reverse causality nature of McKinsey's tests, our inability to quasi-replicate their results suggests that despite the imprimatur given to McKinsey's studies, I'll say again, despite the imprimatur given to McKinsey's studies, they should not be relied on to support the view that U.S. publicly traded firms can expect to deliver improved financial performance if they increase DEI. The imprimatur of McKinsey is the primary reason they were able to get these erroneous studies past the sniff test and implement them into institutions. What do I mean? Whenever you hear someone say the imprimatur of someone, you're talking about their status. McKinsey is one of the best known, best rated consulting firms. It is in the who is who of consulting firms. If someone says McKinsey says X, immediately, simply due to the fact that McKinsey's name has credibility, that claim, regardless of its actual merits, will be sealed and delivered and it'll be deemed valid. This is a result of a phenomenon I have talked about a lot on this channel called the Society of Status. The Society of Status, in very simple language, is this notion that you can judge an argument, or you can judge a person, or the value of a person, off of the basis of their title, or their position in the social hierarchy, or in the case of McKinsey, their credibility and popularity amongst a certain class of people. Now, the Society of Status is not simply an ingrained sort of human instinct, although to some extent, I think that status does help differentiate, has helped human beings throughout history differentiate certain kinds of behavior from other kinds of behavior in a way that is morally intelligible and that is okay. But the Society of Status used to be the guiding principle of human civilization, and it was the fundamental reason why for hundreds of years, human beings remained suppressed in their potential. When America came along and embraced the New World philosophy, that value did not inhere in social status. Value does not inhere in the class of someone. Value does not inhere in the familial lineage or the reputation of someone, but it instead rests within the individual human being's heart and soul. And from that, we can constitute a society by empowering the individual to enter into contracts with consent and within a sound principle framework of natural law and moral values. When that became the standard, as opposed to a deterministic status-based idea of society, which the historian Henry Sumner Maine quite accurately characterizes a lot of American society before America as bearing. When that became the standard, our moral understanding, our social understanding, our ability to interact with our own greatness, all were unlocked. And something beautiful happened. There was more progress in these 270 plus years of America being in existence than there had been for hundreds of years of human history prior. I'm not saying that there was no progress. Of course there's been progress throughout those hundreds of human history. But there's been more on a civilizational level in these past 270 years. The Industrial Revolution, the building of the airplane, the innovation of new medicines. A lot of it centered and happening in America under New World premises that were crafted under the society of contract, where people could enter into relationships willingly and they could show their value on the basis of their merits and not on the basis of wherever they were born or what status they have. That is, in essence, the single principle, the single transitional principle that unlocked the greatness of the West. And yet, The society of status has managed to snake its way back into our society in so many different ways. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is simply one way that is downstream of a long river of other ways that it's done. And the headwaters of that way, the origin, the source, has been the perversion of the American cultural ethos by anti-American ideas that come from what was Prussia back then, but is now Germany, that come from Europe, and that seek to take us back to that old world European mindset. DEI is fundamentally based off of a race Marxist view of identity and society. And that race Marxist view is absolutely influenced by old world European notions, going all the way back to Hegel and a bunch of others, who were German, by the way, who operated under this idea that there were these grand structures and systems by which you could understand the human being, and his individual value wasn't really anything quite intelligible beyond the existence of that grand collective. So this old world status mentality has snaked its way back into our country, not only with DEI, but in the very way many of us happen to interact with our contemporary political and social situation right now. A lot of people will tend to believe that a celebrity has more to say than a commoner on the street, because a celebrity has more followers, has more prestige, and is more well-known, even though celebrities have some of the most vacuous and oftentimes destructive moral sentiments and political sentiments that exist right now in the discourse. But because of their status, they are given this divine quality that basically gives them this shield of invulnerability that makes their claims matter less, more so than who they are. When you conflate the person with the ideas, that is when you get into trouble. And this problem exists on and on and on. This problem exists in terms of universities and how education is seen. Education for a very long time in America was seen as this must-have thing if you go through the institutions and systems that have been laid down before you, the public education system, the university system, in some cases the graduate school system, and you achieve the degrees, you were somehow a more valuable person, a more accomplished person, even though if you look at it realistically, you simply went through a bunch of steps that you had no choice in, no choice in making, that someone else before you decided to take, that in many cases leaves you buried in debt, or in certain cases leaves your mind buried in ideas that have been rehashed and re-talked about by a bunch of people before you, all to get some shiny ornament that's supposed to convey something about your intelligence or value. That's the society of status. In all honesty, if you want my opinion, real universities wouldn't give you degrees. Real universities would actually worry about building up your skill and then send you right into the workforce. Different story, different day. And so McKinsey's status was enough to befuddle all of these major institutions and give rise to DEI in a functional sense. My friends, we must evaluate the way we see society, the way we see human nature, the way we see human value, and the way we assess the credibility of ideas. And we must do our best not to conflate what something looks like, whether it be in prestige or status, with what something is. We must do our best not to conflate reputation with validity. We must do our best not to conflate blind trust with rational trust. Because in a blind trust society, McKinsey and whoever else has built up a reputation have license to run a roughshod over our nation and inject as many toxic ideas as they wish. To any person considering DEI on the merits, they wouldn't care if McKinsey, the Pope, Mother Teresa, or anyone had endorsed it, because on the merits, DEI is absolutely toxic. On the merits, DEI destabilizes workforces by prioritizing appearances over skills and injecting people that were picked on appearances into a place where people have skills, thereby creating a lack of social cohesion and disunity. DEI poisons the workforce and workplace by erecting this umbrella of acceptability, this Overton window over certain ideas in the workforce that if you talk about, you could be running athwart someone's emotions or feelings, and therefore your standing in that company and your standing as a person, most importantly, are called into question. There is under any rational assessment that does not accept the premises of social justice, which are flawed, or the premises of postmodernism, which are doubly flawed, or the premises of seeing man as this creature created by institutions and not something more fundamental, there can be no way to justify or rehabilitate DEI. And yet the story here is not that McKinsey's skewed the data. Okay, that's unfortunate, but what's the old saying? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Well, that's because stats can be skewed to go in a different direction. The true story here is that our culture's lack of understanding of the distinction between status and contract, and our refusal to assert the moral principle of merit in evaluating ideas gave rise to a monster that has been wreaking havoc for the past 4, 5, 6 years in American life. My friends, reject the society of status. Reject prestige as validity. Reject blind trust. Embrace reason, study philosophy, and question the premises of any claim laid before your feet. Both you and your society will be better for it. My friends, I love you guys so much. If you want to support me, if you want to support a political and social commentary driven to you through a philosophic lens, if you want to support a young 24-year-old commentator trying to make his mark on the world, I'm going to ask you to do a few things. Number one, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to me if you're not already. Please subscribe to me. That'd mean a lot to me. I'm going to ask you to click the notification bell. Both of those things are free. I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. If you can leave a comment as well, that'll help in the algorithm. I'm going to ask you to like the video. Those are a few things you can do that are totally free. Now, if you want to go the extra mile, and you don't have to, this is not obligatory, but if you want to go to the extra mile to help me, I ask you to donate to me so that I can bring you more content, I can bring you more high quality content, and I can spend more time doing these videos. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please, stay pensive. Bye, guys.